Hello, I am Professor Zahoor, ex-Dean Faculty of Fine Arts, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. This morning, I am going to take this particular building. The initial step is how to measure it and see perspective. Close your one eye and stretch arm to the full. The technique to measure the proportion is to put one end of the brush on the corner of the building and see the width of building occupies what length of the brush. Mark it on the drawing paper. Similarly, measure the height of the building as well as the tree. One can easily make out the proportions by comparing tall and small and thin and thick objects in a frame. See the placement of the tree. Then note down the distance of the tree from the building. We are taking the tree as the focal point. We have to measure and keep everything in proportion to that. For example, if the tree is one part, then how many parts will make the building? The window and the width of the ground. One also needs to keep in mind the closest as well as the farthest corner and also the center point. If one tree is one part, then the tree next to it is half part. If the building is two and a half part of the tree, then one needs to see what part is in front and how much is going behind the tree. It is an important factor to not to change places while measuring each object. The measurements are supposed to be taken from the same spot without moving back or ahead. With just the arm revolving and at full stretch. After indicating all the dots of a starting and ending point of the object on the sheet, it becomes easy to draw them without worrying about the proportions going wrong. Draw the line for the tree on the farthest corner of the building and outline of the building, keeping track of the windows and the conical top. One can mentally chalk out the whole structure even without the details on the drawing paper. The perspective will add closeness and distance to the painting. Start filling the painting with the lightest shade lemon yellow, indicating the source of light. Fill the structure of building and then apply a few strokes over the foliage of the trees. The one on the left, the right, and close to the center of the painting. Also chalk out the line of the pathway. transparency of the color and spontaneity of the brush stroke will add playful character to the painting. Now apply light blue color over the sky and reflecting through the trees also at some places. These colors are just preparing a base on which the artist has to work in multiple layers. Now is the time to add another basic color, burnt sienna over the buildings, tree and path. All these colors will act as base of upper coating and peep through transparencies. Numerous tonal variations can be created by placing one color over the other. Apply the darkest tone to indicate the windows with Van Dyke brown and burnt umber. These colors will play the role of the shadow on the trunk of the tree too. Clyde Espevik says, you are creating interest in foundation by creating those knowledge gaps, like in a novel, but not in a totally obvious way, or it can get boring or trite. The original subject acts as an observing space of the creative process, a base which will lead an artist to the final stage of the painting. Every artist forms his own visual concepts and thoughts, ideas and theories, and inspirations and imagination. That's the reason representation of same object made by different artists differ. Start applying tones of green on the foliage of the tree, keeping the upper foliage lighter than the one going in the depth. The dark, the light tones create a three-dimensional effect and visually makes the thing appear close or at the distance. Apply dark next to the building. The bushes will push the building ahead. The main purpose is to mark dark spaces so that the lighter parts get highlighted and stand out. An artist can just develop his instinct with practice. By experimenting, only can we find the meaning of each stroke. Like Cloud Moon it said, when you go out to paint, try to forget what object you have before you, a tree, a house, a field, or whatever. Merely think, here is a little square of blue, here an oblong of pink, here a streak of yellow, and paint it just as it looks to you, the exact color and shape, until it emerges as your own naive impression of the scene before you. So, without taking out any details at initial stage, one need to blur the eyes and make a rough analysis of dark and light areas and apply the tones boldly. Every stroke will then become an element in itself and make its own space in abstraction. With the experimental approach of laying down one color and overlapping with another, then again bringing it back to its original shade is also a part of exploration. Concept of blue circular disc with red surroundings. The transformation into a red disc with the blue surround. Reconversion to the original state. Do this 7 consecutive times. Conceive through inner observation how thinking thereby becomes mobile and free in itself and ultimately is raised to the condition free from the body. Gradually building up the darker areas and adding new tones to the painting is in a way opening up of mind and trying to find true quality of colors, a manifestation of real life or objects through the spirit. All these calls for imagination and the skill of the hand. It's a process to discover oneself, finding new elements from the visible things and present something that actually exists in just artist's unique vision. Darby Bernard rightly said, when you are painting a landscape, assume the painting is real and landscape is an illusion. Keep on arranging the colors, values, and textures reflecting the dramatic interlocking of lights and shadows. At every stage, an artist would feel like applying an even more darker tone. Sometimes in foliage and now for tree trunks and building branches and also another depth of the hidden foliage. This play of chiaroscuro keeps on creating new dimensions, something close to, yet away from reality. Section by section building up of the painting keeps an artist fully involved in another world of creation. He is building same trees in different lights and flows. The keen observation helps him in giving width to inner vision, virtuosity and mystery. A few dots on the path pulls the vision of the spectator and shows him the way to follow, the direction to enter in painterly world. Each dot on the path can imply flown away leaves or pebbles. It all depends on what a viewer wants to interpret. Whether he wants to follow the imaginative track of an artist or from his own notions by triggering his imaginations. When an artist is painting and is applying bold strokes, which are filling the major areas and also dabbing dots on the surface, he is just bringing out something new from what he has absorbed from the scene in front of him. His work becomes the work of his mind rather than that from nature. Like Wives Clean says, I had left the visible physical blue at the door, outside in the street. The real blue was inside, the blue of profundity of space, the blue of my kingdom, of our kingdom, the immaterialization of blue, the colored space that cannot be seen, but which we impregnate ourselves with. Apply the shadow so that the building recedes in the background and the perspective is created. Now the pebbles are peeping in a subdued way from underneath the transparent layers of the shadows. Again, a coat of green over the trees on the left to move one tree in background and bring another one in front. One can easily make out the light falling on the lighter leaves. And the darker ones embraced in the shadows. Main motive of an artist is to cut out most of the preachments and symbolically depict his vision, making the object distinct, indicating towards the object represented, yet an abstraction. Apply darkness to the windows of the building and also in the creases. The colors should remain fresh and speak their luminous language. Jackson Pollock said that the painting has a life of its own. I try to let it come through. Once the base of painting is prepared with all the gradations of tones, textures, and structure, one can apply the final details with the fine lines or highlight a few areas and subdue others. Articulate an idea, indicate a gesture, and reconstruct his vision. This is a never ending process as an artist's spirit is never satisfied. And he keeps on getting more and more involved and entangled in the multiple layering of colors. yet maintaining the spontaneity and rhythm. Hans Krishner says, it seems as tough the goal of my work has always been to dissolve myself completely into the sensation of the surroundings in order to then integrate this into a coherent painterly form. Each stroke, which might seem of no value to a viewer, means something to the artist. He can create or amplify any shape or form. Add another dimension to the depth, or even give birth to the perspective by his single stroke. It is something that fertilizes his imagination and helps him in giving birth to another world. There is openness in the painting. An artist can look backward in the initial stage as well as forward towards the final destination. Brian Crawford Young feels most painters will tell you they are transported whenever they paint. The time just flies. It is the combination of having to concentrate and yet enjoy at the deep level of application of colors to canvas. It's sensual and addictive. Layer by layer, this watercolor painting is also getting more and more value and meaning. Dark tone of Van Dyke brown and freshness of greens are speaking volumes. Whether applied in bold patches or in the stippling method, pointillism also leads to a new optical blending. Usually in watercolors, white color is not used due to its opaque quality. But here I am using it to highlight certain areas, turning transparent watercolors to opaque ones. One needs to be very particular and conscious of the fact that being too much meticulous and deliberate with the brush stroke can create a hindrance in the visual flow too. One need to paint with the passionate indifference which draws the painterly mind into the frame of imagination, excitement, pleasure, and explorations. The depths of white and burnt sienna are bringing the painting towards its end. To a viewer, it may seem complete, but an artist needs to give vent to his spirit charged with hours of enthusiasm and observations. From somewhere outside, the artist's vision has moved completely inside the painting. The bold patches are optically blending so rhythmically when seen from a distance. Contrast of white against the dark crease of a building and the foliage of a tree is beautifully capturing the eye. The transparency has totally been replaced by opaque watercolor. Arnulf Reiner wonderfully depicts this process in the words, the total overpaintings, developed, developed through incessant working. The original motif peeped through the ages. Gradually, it vanished completely.